G'day and welcome to another edition of Hef's Homebrew. Today I'm going to be doing a tasting on what I'm calling my Pacific Ale 2.0. It's based off the Morgan's recipe for Pacific Ale, which I did brew last year. I thought it came out pretty well. The people who I gave it to enjoyed it, but there were a couple of things that I thought I could improve on. First of all, I know for the style it's meant to be light in body, but for me it was just a little bit too thin. I thought it was lacking a bit of body, so I wanted to increase that. And it only uses a very small amount of hops as a dry hop. I thought it needed a little bit more hop aroma and more hop flavor. So what I did was I made some adjustments to improve those two areas. So I did use the basic Morgan's Pacific Ale recipe as my base, which is the 1.7 kilogram tin of Pacific Pale Ale, the 1 kilogram of liquid wheat malt extract, and then stuck with the Galaxy and Cascade hops. But what I did was, to improve the body, first of all, I added 500 grams of light dry malt. Instead of brewing to 23 litres, I only brewed to 21 litres. So there were two things that I did to give it a little bit more body. In terms of hops, what I did was I did a hop stand. I'll just double check my notes to get the quantities right. So I did a steep of 16 grams of Galaxy and 8 grams of Cascade. Just let that sit for 10 minutes and then chucked it into the fermenter with the malt. And then for the dry hop, instead of using 24 grams of Galaxy and 12 of Cascade as recommended in the recipe, I increased it. I did 34 grams of Galaxy and 17 grams of Cascade. I also used 2 packets of rehydrated US-05. With this one, I didn't want to stuff around, so I had it in the fermenting fridge at 18 degrees. I just let it go for 2 weeks without touching it. Then I did the dry hop, and after 3 days, then I cold crashed. So it had basically 3 weeks in the fermenter. And then after that, I bottled it into the 750ml long necks with 2 carbonation drops per bottle. So I think that's everything. Let's crack it open and see what it's like. A little bit of a hiss and a little bit of smoke. We'll pour out into the schooner glass. Okay, there we go. So it really is quite dark, certainly darker than most commercial Pacific ales. It's a dark golden colour. We've got about a finger of off-white head, which, as with a lot of kit brews, is dissipating aroma. Certainly got more hop aroma than the base recipe. But you can smell that those tropical and citrusy kind of flavours coming through from the Galaxy and the Cascade. There's a bit of malt presence there as well in the aroma. Yeah, all right. And hopefully you can see on the camera. Yeah, not a bad amount of carbonation. All right, let's give it a taste. Cheers. In terms of the things that I was looking to improve, the body and the hop aroma and flavour, it certainly does deliver that. A definite increase in body. The body, I would say, rather than being right at that light point of the spectrum, I'd describe it as light to medium. It did finish. Final gravity was about 1013, 1014. So yeah, there's a little bit of body there. No real bitterness to speak of. There is a bit of an underlying malt presence there in the flavour, which is nice. And, you know, it's a reasonably hoppy beer, I would say, with those tropical and citrus fruity type flavours coming through. Very easy to drink. After bottling, the approximate ABV is 5.2%, so I still think that's sessionable. As with most home brewers, I've been tasting it weekly from the 2-week mark, and as with all kit brews, time is your best friend. So it's certainly improved over that period, that 4-week period, and I would be expecting it probably to be at its best kind of somewhere between this 6 to 8 week mark. I was able to get 25 long necks in the end, although I was pretty keen to get as much out as possible. So those last couple were right at the bottom. You know, I was tilting the fermenter, probably got a fair bit of yeast and hop debris and stuff in there, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. It's still beer. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with the way that this one turned out. I will brew it again, I think, probably to this recipe. Yeah, I think in terms of the body, it doesn't need anything more there. I'll see how the taste goes over the next couple of weeks. I might decide that it could still use more hops. I tend to like my beers reasonably hoppy, especially in this style. But overall, yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I guess the biggest question for people looking to brew kit beers is about homebrew, the dreaded and infamous homebrew twang. And at the moment, I would say there's a tiny little bit there just in the back end. You know, it's always going to be hard to eliminate it completely, but from my experience and my understanding, adding more hops and adding dry malt as opposed to liquid malt and or steeping some grains, they're your best ways to try and cover it up. Time is the other factor, I think, as well as a temperature controlled ferment. So I better have another sip and give it a rating and finish up. Okay, I guess it's probably not true to the Pacific Ale style anymore. The the Stone and Wood Pacific Ale, I guess if you're an international viewer and you're not familiar with the style, which I think is reasonably unique to Australia, to be fair, happy to be corrected though. It's a pale ale which has a percentage of wheat in the grain bill, and it's going to be pretty reasonably hopped with Galaxy more commonly than anything else. So it's a light, easy drinking, tropical passion fruit type pale ale, I guess is the best way to describe it. I'd be calling this more of a pale ale or a Pacific pale ale than an actual Pacific ale, if you're going to be picky and pedantic and worry about semantics. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Yeah, pretty happy with it. We'll brew it again. In terms of next up for Hef's Homebrew, I'm going to be brewing a dark beer based off the Morgan's Australian Old kit. but making quite a few additions to it. Rather than being a 2 years old type of dark ale, it's going to be going more into a porter style, I would say. But yeah, looking forward to that. Hopefully getting that down in the next couple of weeks. And then again, I'll do a tasting video after it's been bottled and had time to condition. So looking forward to trying that one. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time on Hef's Homebrew.